Most people think that the hardest exercises burn the most calories, but what if I told you that isn't always true? And in fact, it's not true at all. High intensity workouts burn a ton of calories, but most people can't sustain them. So what's the best way of actually melting the fat off your body so you can get the results that you're looking for? Today, we're ranking different types of movement based off of calorie burn, sustainability, and effort, and all the things that actually matter to losing the fat so that you can get results for you instead of taking the generic advice of burn more calories. So first, let's start off with, do harder exercises burn more calories? Kind of, not all the time. A plank is pretty hard. Most people can't do a 1 minute long plank, but that doesn't burn hardly any calories at all. It might get your core working a little bit, but it's not going to expose your six pack or expose a good looking muscular definition underneath all that fat, because it's not going to burn the fat in the first place. There's the common misconception or assumption, I should say, that something that is really high intensity burns more calories and helps you shed the fat faster. An example might be sprinting. So doing a sprint and then walking back and doing another sprint. The problem with this is how sustainable it is. If it is something that you dread and you don't stick with it and you don't do it more frequently, then you're not gonna, be burning the fat. But also, if it wears you down and it exhausts you to the point where you're not able to perform other things, or maybe later in the day you're moving a whole lot less, and so your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, basically think of it like your steps. If your steps fall drastically, or if you get super hungry, there's all kinds of things that come into play here, resulting in high intensity exercise not being the best for fat loss. Now, don't get me wrong, high intensity exercise is great for health. It's great for an athlete trying to become faster or better, or being able to run more often at a very high intensity. So I'm not saying they don't have a place. And also, if you absolutely love it, and we're gonna hit on this more later, it can be an effective fat loss tool. If you just love your high intensity workouts, I'm not trying to take them from you. So the problem with high intensity interval training, sprinting, things like that, CrossFit, mountain climbers for your abs, any of those, and we're gonna go over a specific list a little bit later of and ranking them kind of in order of what burns calories and what maybe doesn't help you lose the body fat. The problem with these things is that if you can't sustain it, you're actually gonna end up burning less calories and you're gonna end up getting worse results. So let's say you burn 15 calories per minute sprinting. That's pretty high calorie burns, pretty high rate of calorie burn. If you're walking, maybe you only burn 5 calories per minute or 4 calories per minute. But for easy math, let's say it's 5 calories per minute. If you walk for 3 minutes, you've equaled that sprint. How many sprints are you gonna do? If you do 10, well, that puts you at 150. But if you walk for an hour every single day, because you're not gonna sprint every day either, we're gonna go over that a little bit later, I think. But if you walk every day and you burn off 150 calories or more from a good walk, it would be more after a while, because you'd be moving a little bit faster, maybe you'd be going uphill on a treadmill incline, or a little bit faster on a Stairmaster or whatever. If you have this slow and steady cardio, then you're going to end up burning way more calories than you otherwise would during those sprints. Plus, another major problem with HIIT training is that it actually takes the resources that you would otherwise be using to build and keep muscle, because it's so intense. Now, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I'm not saying that if your goal might not be to have the absolute most amount of muscle possible. In fact, most of the viewers of this channel are probably not in it to be a bodybuilder. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we need to take what is sustainable and works and at burning more calories long-term, and take that into more consideration than what burns the most calories in this minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes. So what we're really talking about here is the effort to results ratio. What burns the most calories without destroying you? Because if you end up doing cardio straight into the ground, and what was the point? You've probably been there before. You either got injured or you got burnt out, or you just dreaded it so much that you kind of fell off your program. Life was a little too sweet eating all that stuff and not having to work out. And so I'm just gonna go back to the way things were. What we want is sustainability. We want something that you can kind of pair with enjoyable activities in order to do a lot more of. And I hate to say it, but there is no easy way out, especially in fat loss. Maybe there will be soon though, with the introduction with all these things you can take to help. But as of right now, there is no easy way out. And so we got to do the work. And sometimes it does take more work in order to get us those results, but it is worth it. And you can do this. It doesn't have to be hard. Right now I'm walking at 2 miles an hour. Now I might recommend walking a little bit faster if you build up, I'm doing that for the purposes of this video. But in order for something to be sustainable, you might have to pair it with something that is enjoyable and is easy enough that you can enjoy that activity. So I could be watching Netflix right now on my phone. I could be listening to an audiobook or a podcast. I do that a lot. I usually listen to something that is helping me with my business or helping me become a better trainer. And that's how the time passes, way faster than it otherwise would. I remember just 2 nights ago, I was doing, if you haven't looked at it on my channel yet, I did 25,000 steps a day as like a challenge for 7 days. And one day I got, I was struggling just to get to the 25, as I was almost every single day. But I ended up getting 25,800 because I just wanted to finish. There was like 3 minutes left on this video I was watching on YouTube on my phone right here on this treadmill. And I was walking just like this pace, like really slow because I already reached my 25,000. Ended up getting more because I was entertained by something and it wasn't so bad to continue walking. And so that's what we want to build into your life. We want to build in a way of being able to be sustainable with our cardio and really, really enjoy the cardio. And we're going to get into very soon here ways of actually doing that and thinking outside the box, not just walking on a treadmill and listening to something, but thinking a little more like, how can this be something that I enjoy and I do all the time? So the things that I'm talking about here are like high intensity activities such as, sprinting, burpees, other things like that. This Rogue Echo bike, hopefully it'll track me down there. This Rogue Echo bike is, and actually that's ironically, in my top echelon of fat loss activities. And I'll explain how a high intensity thing ended up in the low intensity effective bracket in a second. But those things tend to be very high calorie burners, but it's hard to keep them up for very long. Things that are lower intensity tend to be walking, rucking, basketball. I know the actual sport of basketball is higher intensity, but if you're just going to go play and shoot some hoops, it's going to be a lot lower intensity. That's something you can keep up, you can enjoy, it's not going to be dreadful, all that stuff. So I'm a big believer that your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is much more important than your cardio burn or intense cardio sessions. So that's basically getting more steps and getting more low intensity cardio that just gives you more movement. If you haven't seen my 25,000 steps a day, I think I titled it 175,000 steps in a week. That's what it added up to. And it was a little bit more actually. If you haven't seen that yet, the results were insane. Now, I go in that video and explain this is not, in fact, some of this might be muscle. This is not just pure body fat. A lot of it is water and glycogen, but still, the point is that a lot of movement produced a lot of calorie burn, which produced a lot of weight loss. And so it's more important that we're actually getting those calories burned instead of just doing something really intense, costing us the ability to move more later. I think it's Eric Helms talks about the NEAT or the steps effect over cardio. If doing intense cardio burns you, 3,000 calories, but costs you the ability to walk a bunch of steps, or at least your normal steps, your total calorie burn for the day might be close to 3,000. Now that's excessive. Of course, you wouldn't burn 3,000 calories. But I'm saying if you burn 8,000 calories in the day just by walking around and being more active, then you've burned a lot more calories than it costing you the ability to move the rest of the day. Okay, I got that wrong. I actually looked it up because, the principle holds true. But he says someone who moves from 3,000 steps a day to 8,000 burns way more calories over time than doing HIIT 3 times a week. If you were able to do high intensity interval training for an hour a day, 5 days a week, that would be the better answer. It would burn more calories. And the activities that classifies that, we're going to go over in a second. But we just usually can't keep that up. And so that is the main issue. Okay, so now let's talk about resistance training. A lot of people, it is a common misconception that resistance training burns a lot of calories. It is the best way of losing body fat. Long term, there is some truth to that. Having more muscle means your basal metabolic rate is going to be higher, and that is going to get you way more calorie burn over a lifetime, over a month, over years, over a week even, than your movement ever will. But that isn't the full story. You could have the hardest leg day of your life and you leave hobbling out of the gym and you burned a whopping total of 150 calories. That might even be high. It doesn't require a lot of energy to lift hard. Effort does not equal calorie burn. That's what I'm getting at here. And so by pairing weightlifting or resistance training, even with the rings or whatever, with cardio, sustainable cardio that you can do 4 or 5 times a week, that is the holy grail to get to. That is the place where whenever you're doing that much movement and you're retaining your muscle, you're eating enough protein, other videos on my channel for that and everything, that is whenever all this comes together and actually makes your weight loss not just attainable, but I'm not kidding, it feels effortless. So I think the right balance of this is weight training 2 to 4 times a week. We'll just say total body 3 days a week, followed by daily movement, like a step goal of, let's say your step goal is 10,000, then you get 10,000 steps every day. Start with that. You can always add in some low intensity cardio, or you could add in some high intensity cardio. There's nothing bad with that. If you just took that plan I just said and you added in 1 day of high intensity cardio, or maybe 2, you would have the best of all the worlds. All right, so now let's get to the actual ranking of these things. And I guess they're not actually ranked in any particular order because it kind of depends on what you love. But I'll give you my ranking just like if you were just indifferent to all of them. Number 1, you probably already guessed it, is walking. Combine that with rucking. I love rucking, adding weight to your back. That's going to increase calorie burn a lot, and it doesn't increase the difficulty by too much. I mean, it's difficult at first, but it doesn't beat your body up compared to walking, any more that I think. Number 2 is going to be sports. So that is any sport that you just love. If you love pickleball, then play pickleball. That is going to be great for you. If you love basketball, just shooting the hoops, go do that. That is, perfect. Stairmaster is going to be number 3 because you can control that incline. The incline's fixed. And then if you're at a setting 3, let's say, you won't accidentally start moving slower, because if you do, you're going to fall off. So if you grow to a 4, you are now burning more calories. And I love that control that it has. And that doubles up with number 1 of walking. Walking on a treadmill, if you set that at a 3 speed and 3 incline, if you get up to a 10 incline, because you're more fit, you're going to be burning more calories, but you're not accidentally going to move slower or you're going to fall off the treadmill. So it forces you to kind of use that extra fitness. Whereas on a bike or something, you might accidentally slow down just because you made it harder. And so now you have to slow down. So walking, sports, Stairmaster. I'm going to skip over the Rogue Echo bike. I think that's number 4. I'm going to explain that in a second. Jump rope, if you enjoy it. That's considered high intensity, but I really just like it. And I feel if a person really enjoys it, they do it so much. It's not crazy high intensity. It can be higher intensity on the lower legs. That's why, it kind of falls in that weird category of it is higher intensity, but if you like it, it doesn't derail you. It's only really high intensity on like your ankles and legs. So it is a really good option. Swimming, I think, is number 6. And then weightlifting or resistance training, and I know I just talked about that as not being like the answer, but long-term, that has got to be included in there. That is going to help you control your weight. But for this purposes of this video, it probably, we'll just count that as not really going in there, but I thought I had to mention it. So the Rogue Echo bike, that is a pretty intense movement. If you try to just mosey on the Rogue Echo bike, it is difficult, but I have done it and I have forced myself to do it because I didn't have options for a while there. My nerves wouldn't let me walk or run. And so I had to sit down and figure something out, and I didn't want to go buy another bike. So the Rogue Echo bike is a fan bike. The harder you push, the harder it gets because the fan increases the resistance as it's spinning around. So for me, I just went as light as I could, and as I got stronger and stronger, I was able to keep my RPMs higher and higher. And it scorches calories because you're using your arms, if you saw that in the video earlier, and your legs. So it's like a bike, but it's kind of like an elliptical bike. I love it. It is absolutely one of my favorite ways of losing weight and controlling your calories. Contrary to, this is going to be a good segue into the worst list. So the worst list is stationary bikes, especially recumbent bikes. All you're doing is moving your legs. It's kind of equivalent to those things that you put underneath your desk and you just kind of pedal. That is not burning calories. There's a reason that it is so much easier. There's a reason that a person seems to gravitate towards that recumbent bike because it is easier. They sit down, they watch TV, and they just kind of pedal their legs and they look up in the gym. That's what I see. And it just isn't gonna result in great weight loss for you, I promise. Ellipticals. I wouldn't say like this, I guess, isn't in any particular bad order. Ellipticals are great. If you love them, go ahead and use them. There's nothing wrong with that. That kind of does the Rogue Echo bike thing. But as you increase, with the arms and the legs, but as you increase in terms of your fitness, let's say you go from a level 2 to a level 8, it is possible, unless you always keep an eye on those RPMs, that you're going to accidentally slow down, making up for the fact that now you should be burning more calories. So they're not my favorite to use. Probably number 2 is sprinting. Sprinting, I've never seen a person successfully lose weight with sprinting or CrossFit. That goes right in hand with that. Are you going to get good muscle mass with CrossFit? Sure, you're definitely going to keep your muscle. It's going to be, CrossFit's great, but it's a sport, not a way of losing weight in my opinion. Sandbag, and I love sandbag workout of the day, WOD, type workouts where it's like high intensity, you're flipping the sandbag up, you're flipping it down, you're throwing it over your shoulder. Those are great, but that is the same vein as sprinting. It is not something that you're gonna be able to keep up forever. It's a great workout to improve your fitness and your health and your athleticism. That's what I would use it for. If you wanna run Tough Mudders, do it, man. Do these sandbag workouts and do sprints, but that's because you're an athlete, not because you're trying to lose weight, okay? Battle ropes, same thing, awesome, I love them. This is all just gonna be repetitive here at this point. Running. Now running is, you can make it relatively, whenever you get good at a relatively low intensity effort, but the reason running is on this worst list for fat loss is because it will sap the resources of your legs to keep their muscles. You will not see a long distance runner with big legs. You'll see sprinters with big legs, and I'm not saying you necessarily need big legs, but I'm saying it obviously points to the fact that it uses the resources from the legs, prevents you from building and retaining muscle. And so that's gonna be very important long-term for your metabolism to be high, is to retain that muscle. So running is not going to be something that helps you lose weight. Now, again, if you wanna be an athlete, go for it. And just know that you might have a little bit less muscle, but that's okay because you're running, and if you enjoy it and you love it, it doesn't matter. You're gonna burn the calories while running anyway. And the last thing that goes on this list, actually, this is the worst of the worst. It is the number one worst, and that is planks, crunches. Anything to spot reduce the ab fat, the stomach fat. That's not possible. You're not gonna be able to spot reduce it. It burns hardly any calories. You'd be better off walking on a walking pad at 1 mile an hour watching your favorite TV show than doing 500 crunches. I guarantee you will burn more calories walking on that walking pad than 500, a lot more calories. So don't waste your time. Now, working out on your abs does allow them to pop through that body fat a little bit faster. And so it is something that I think a person should be doing. But for the purposes of ranking the best versus the worst exercises to lose fat, the crunches isn't gonna be it. Now in this video, we talked about exercises that are good and bad for body fat, but you gotta have the whole package, you gotta have the whole system. So I talk about that right here in this video, the system I run my clients through that actually helps them lose weight. I call it my dial system, where we get everything from nutrition and exercise and cardio, all that is in there.